Good afternoon and welcome to Personal Transformation. My name is Stewart Thompson. I'm, as you can tell from COVID, I'm still not broadcasting from the Gatehouse, but I'm still here and about, and I'm here talking to you. Please welcome to our Personal Transformation today. I have some wonderful, esteemed colleagues with me here today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but I have Maria, Paula, and Brad here with me, and today we're going to be talking about suicide ideation, self-harm, harm reduction, coping skills, all kinds of things kind of tied together, but we have some really good information, and I'm really excited to be talking with Paula and Brad because they are also heading our ASIST program at the Gatehouse, and which we're going to talk about as well. But we're also going to be talking about the, all the bells and whistles that are included with this. And if you trust me, there are really nasty bells and whistles when it comes to suicidal thoughts. And we're also really want to talk about a lot about it's the language. And I know a lot of people have this wrong when it comes to talking with somebody who's suicidal. So it's going to be interesting and educational for everyone involved here today and listening, that this language is such an important issue. And we'll talk about it to a greater extent, and hopefully it'll help you understand if you do come into a situation like this and know how to talk to the person and not feel them, so they don't feel bad in any way or make them feel worse than they already do. So I'm going to pass this over to Maria, if you would like to start us off. And Paula?
Hi, Stuart. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. Hopefully my audio is working okay. We're just working on some of that stuff in the background, and it's a new streaming service that we're using today. So thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Stuart, for having us on your show, and definitely discussing a very important topic today, suicide prevention, suicide ideation, and aspects of self-harm. I am the director of the Gatehouse and have been so for the past 5 years, and I'm super proud to be here with Paula, my colleague and sibling as well, and a business partner as well. We recently opened our own psychotherapy practice called MNP Psychotherapy, and we'll be sharing a little bit about some workshops that we're going to be running with Brad actually in the very near future. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it to Paula, who will introduce herself, and then Brad as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you so much, Stuart, for having us here today. And thank you, everyone, for being with us on this beautiful journey and this wonderful community that we'll be creating here together online today. My name is Paula Cordeiro. I work at the Gatehouse with Maria, as my lovely colleague had mentioned. I coordinate various programs at the Gatehouse for young adults, as well as the Phase 2 program and the young adult program. And I'm also a registered applied suicide intervention skills trainer with Living Works Education. For more information about that, you can visit www.thegatehouse.org or livingworks.net for their wonderful programs information. And also, I also work with my colleague as well, Maria, at MNP Psychotherapy and Consulting Services. Thank you very much. And I'll now pass it over to my wonderful and amazing colleague, Brad. Thank you.
And I am very honored to be here with all of you and my colleagues, Maria, Paula, and Stewart, that we've done so much fantastic work together in the idea of suicidal thoughts, people suffering from deep traumas that follow into adulthood. I am the former executive of the Gatehouse. I am a longtime martial artist, been studying in the art of Shaolin Kung Fu for almost 25 years now. I'm an author, and I'm deeply engaged in helping community become stronger and healthier by helping people become stronger and healthier, especially in the areas where our culture doesn't really tend to go in. The ideas of suicide, childhood sexual abuse, childhood abuse in many ways, that reverberates.
And really honored because it's kind of nice because I haven't seen you guys in such a long time. So anybody I'm sure out there will appreciate what I'm talking about with the lockdown. We just haven't been able to see anybody talk to, well, we can talk to people, but we can't see anybody in person, and it's not really quite the same thing. So today is quite an honor to be with you guys here today, especially in the conversation we're going to be talking about. I think what I'd like to do right off the bat is let's start by talking with language. I kind of said that in the intro about language and how people, a lot of people when they're dealing with somebody who has the concepts of suicide on their mind, don't know how to approach that person, how to talk to that person, or what to even say to that person. So language is a really, really big thing. And maybe Brad and Paula or whoever wants to start, we can talk about that. And I'd like to do a little something with the both of you, where I will say something wrong and you can correct me with what, I hate to use the word should, but what should be said and maybe why. So maybe before I do that, maybe you can comment on language. Either one of you. Thank you.
You want me to go?
Sure.
Okay. So I think the first thing to understand is, where does language come from in terms of working with somebody that's doing? All of us come from a place of fear. What if we engage in suicide in that conversation and we don't know what to do? And the simple answer to that is, what we want to be is receptive. We want to be receptive to that story coming out. We want to understand that when somebody is speaking to us about suicide, no matter how dark that story is, some part of them wants to live. So we want to be receptive to that. Of doing the ASIST program, which is 2 days, is to gain skills and knowledge to diminish the fear that comes up when that whole idea, when somebody is with you and you discover that suicide is in their thoughts, and that could be a very scary thing. And as we move on through this session, we'll talk more about specific language. The idea here is that there's an old cultural stigma that says you don't want to open that can of worms, because if you open it up, you won't know what to do with it. And the idea that we want to get across to you is, it's not a can of worms, it's a story. And when that story comes out, it holds less power over the behavior of the person holding that story with nobody to tell it to than it does when it's inside. So actually, by being in front of somebody in their story, as dark as it might seem, you're actually facilitating that life side within inside of them to start speaking.
Thank you. Paula, any thoughts?
Thank you. Thank you, Brad, for sharing your valued insights with us. And thank you as well, Stewart, for asking us. It's a great question, actually, the notion of language. Me personally, I believe that, it's important for people to use strengths-based language, and to, when we have this beautiful saying at the Gatehouse that, we're being with people instead of doing for. So when we're looking at the notion of language, it's very imperative and significant to be with people and listen to them share their valued insights, and not trying to, do for them. Survivors aren't broken. They don't need to be fixed. It's about being with instead of doing for, and using strengths-based language that, demonstrates empathy, a kindness, and as Brad beautifully says, an open heart. It's important to, bring your heart wherever you go, especially when you're sitting with someone who is experiencing thoughts of suicide. Thank you.
Just to add to that, Stewart, real quick, and I know that Brad will likely touch upon this when we're doing the ASIST training, is when we clearly ask people, are you thinking about suicide? So there's no shame, there's no stigma attached to that statement. It is a direct statement to invite the person to talk about what is happening for them, because oftentimes people will keep that hidden, keep it secret, will engage in self-harm, like cutting behaviors, and not necessarily that self-harm is a direct indicator that they are going to successfully complete suicide, but just to know that there is no shame in talking about this, that you are a trusted person that they can come to and speak to about suicide prevention, or their thoughts or feelings around self-harm and suicide ideation. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to start this now with, obviously this is going to be the wrong language. I'm going to suggest now. I'm hoping that between the 3 years or the 2 years that you can correct me with what should be said, and then maybe you can explain why this should be said. for example, well, here's my first phrase, which I hear from most people. I see this on social media. I hear people even say this all the time. Well, people would say in a situation like, okay, well, the person committed suicide. So is that really the right way to say it? As an example. And who would like to start? Brad.
Okay. So I think we have to, with any language like that, we have to feel how that would land on us. The whole idea of committed. What does that typically refers to? In our culture, it typically refers to somebody that's done something wrong. So, and we still see this, and there is more evidence coming out to language that's healthier in the idea of an intervention, but you'll see it in news medias and feeds all the time, this idea of committed, and how that lands on a person is that they are doing something wrong. And in the ASIST program, we go over the idea of how we feel about suicide, and we bring it up. And if we consider as caregivers as suicide being a community health problem, not unlike any other health problems people have, then we can meet it with better language. That committed automatically will start to push that story down, because it's going to evoke a feeling of, I've done something wrong. People who have thoughts of suicide come to those thoughts with reasons. We just want to discover what those reasons are. We don't want to push them down. They're not wrong. They're not right. They're their reasons, and they need to talk about them.
Thank you. Now, what would be the right thing to say, as the way I phrased it? So what would be another way of saying that? Well, I guess a correct way of saying it, instead of saying committed suicide. So what would be another way of saying that would be correct and not less degrading?
Suicided is, it solves the same thing. That person suicided. If we're talking about somebody that has suicided, it's not to bury the fact of, and not to make it, to candy coat it. It's just to eliminate some of the problems of language that make people apprehensive about coming forward and talking about their thoughts of suicide. So in the case where somebody did suicide, let's say you can simply say that person suicided. I think that, for me, that's the easiest way, and it doesn't put any negative connotation around it, other than the fact of the sadness and all the repercussions of that. I would say that's the easiest and best way.
Okay, well, here's another phrase which I sometimes hear as well, and thank you, Brad. I sometimes hear this too as well: successful or unsuccessful suicide, or completed or failed suicide. Again, those are wrong connotations to suggest the person has done that. So what do you think of that?
I don't like those terms, and it's always, for me, because I've been educated in this as well. It starts with a feeling. How does it feel? What a successful suicide to me feels like a contradiction in terms. It just feels wrong. I understand that the term is correct if you're saying that somebody did actually succeed in suiciding, but it puts two words together that are fundamentally difficult. And a person that's having thoughts of suicide, we think about how that must feel. Or completed suicide. And again, it's almost goal orientated, and we want to take away that idea of completion or successful out of the idea of suicide. We just want to hear the story, and it can shut down the story or turn the story in a weird direction when we use terms like that in an intervention.
Thank you. Another term I often hear too, people make reference to, like, for example, we're in a pandemic now, so suicide is on the rise. So I hear people saying it's epidemic or it's skyrocketing. What do you think of those terms?
I think they inflame. Say them again so I can get a feel for them.
So what we hear in the media stream quite often is that people make reference to suicide as being epidemic or skyrocketing. And again, they're making it worse than what it actually, well, they're making it sound really, really bad. So again, it's in the language, right? So what are your thoughts on hearing those terms?
Well, I mean, I don't like them because it inflames. Like I said, it has no quantitative value if you are trying to quantify the numbers in suicide and that they're rising, and then put a study together that shows what the contributing factors are. It's a different story, but to put one word like epidemic or skyrocketing in front of suicide, it sends it in. It doesn't help us find out what's happening. We have to understand that when we're talking to somebody that's having thoughts of suicide, we meet them one person at a time. We meet them in their story. We meet them when they're having a difficulty. We want to see the cues. And I also think the cues that can help us engage in the story. And I also think those terms also bring up fear in people. That says, oh my goodness, there's this epidemic or it's skyrocketing and I'm afraid now. And then you'll be afraid to talk to somebody. It makes them hyperinflated for no reason other than to bring up fear. So I don't like them myself.
So in the future, do you kind of see this language changing? Do you seeing it changing now, especially amongst the pandemic? I mean, things are in our face now, whether we like it or not. So people need to talk about this stuff. Well, we need to talk about it, but it's in our face now, so we don't really have much choice. I mean, we can shut it off, but it's still there when we turn social media back on again. So any thoughts on that in regards to it getting better? Is it getting better in regards to language as far as what's going on?
I'll just say a few words and then I'll pass it over to Maria and Paula. I think, quite frankly, us speaking about it right now, the four of us, means to me it's getting better. I think that there are over 2 million ASIST caregivers that are learning about language, learning what it means to be in somebody's story and guide them to a greater place of safety. I think it's getting a lot better. And again, going back to the other terms that inflame it, like skyrocketing and epidemic, to me, I see the other side. I see the participants in our programs that are really looking to be a caregiver for somebody with thoughts of suicide. They want to learn how to help. And like I said, there's over 2 million of us worldwide, over 10,000, 12,000 trainers doing this work. The language is changing. We have to understand, however, that long-held language, it takes a little bit of time. The first thing we have to do is be reasonable.
Oh, froze up there.
Then we can say there must be a better way.
Thank you, Brad. Paula, Maria? Any thoughts on what I've been asking Brad?
Thanks, Stewart. In terms of, is it getting better? As practitioners, more and more professionals are learning more strengths-based language to ask people and how to support people who are having suicide ideation, and reaching out to the Gatehouse too to learn about the ASIST suicide intervention training course, to take that to become more aware. So yeah, I agree with Brad on that one. And in terms of, the language that the media may use to present their picture, like we have to also consider, like, they have a purpose, they have an agenda that they need to meet, whether that's sharing information or sensationalizing information or whatever it is that they're doing. One of the stats that's out there is that every day 10 Canadians die by suicide, and that's a fact, right? So as we're talking, 10 more people today will die by suicide. So just putting that information out there for people to know, because some people don't know that, right? They start learning more about it when their families are affected by it, or their friends or someone that they know in their circle dies by suicide. So just to bring those two topics to light. But yeah, I think it is getting better in terms of people knowing more strategies to support people and wanting to know more. And that's one of the cool things about, being at home. We have more time to be online and get educated and look up resources and help people. As you know, the Gatehouse transitioned all our programs to online services, with the exception of a few groups that are still being transitioned to online, like our Partners Workshop, for example. And LivingWorks actually responded with LivingWorks Start. And I'll let Paula, if you want to share a little bit about LivingWorks Start and what that is, to help educate further people who are interested in learning about that.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Maria. I think one of the most important things, just really quickly, everyone, is, it's what Brad said around the notion of language and how important it is to, use appropriate language that stems from the heart. I think, it's important to, at the Gatehouse, we have this beautiful philosophy that we follow, and Brad, Maria, and myself also follow this philosophy that what we focus on expands. So at the Gatehouse, we typically try to find the light. We look for the light in everyone because everyone has capacity. We see people as strengths-based human being, full person, despite their experiences, despite no matter what they're going through, they're still a human being. And, they have capacity. So we look at people from that framework and we find the inner light within them and we fan the heck out of it. As Arthur Lockhart, the founder of the Gatehouse, founder emeritus of the Gatehouse, beautifully mentions as well. So it's really important to, see people for their capacity and look for that inner light and focus on that and help them expand that light around them, because what we truly focus on does expand around us. So in terms of LivingWorks Start, it's a course that's provided by LivingWorks Education. For more information on that, you can visit livingworks.net. It's an amazing course. Maria and I actually took it as well. I would recommend it to anyone who wants to further increase their skills around the notion of suicide and how to use appropriate language to help persons with thoughts of suicide as well. The course itself, it takes about an hour to an hour and a half complete online. It's really quick. It's also affordable, just under about $30, I believe.
There is a link on our website at thegatehouse.org that people can go to under the news section. If you go to that link and you take the course from that link, LivingWorks is actually donating $5 from every purchase to the Gatehouse. So you're helping, you're getting your knowledge about how to help someone who is experiencing suicide ideation, and you're also helping the Gatehouse by raising funds that way as well. Please feel free to share that link on your social sites. If you go to thegatehouse.org under news and you find LivingWorks Start news item, the link is there.
That's awesome. Thank you. So now we've got a really good start in regards to when we're talking about language. Now we're going to take another step now, and we're kind of going to jump a little bit. Let's talk about self-harm a little bit. Maria?
In terms of what it is, so
what it is.
Yeah, there's various forms of self-harm, burning, cutting, and again, while we're talking about this, for people who are watching the stream, if you are feeling like this is too triggering or you're feeling uncomfortable, you can turn off the stream. You can come back to it later. Go do something that feels safe for you. Do self-care. And there are safety lines that you can call, like the National Suicide Prevention Line, which we'll post in the after, or I'll post the number in the comments section after on here. And also the Gerstein Center, the Toronto Distress Center, are available to speak to 24/7 in Toronto. And Stewart, if you have any other resources that you want to share for in terms of self-care or crisis intervention, please do post them, and I can actually post them on the screen. I'll do that after. So it's recorded in the stream. So in terms of that, there are some strategies that we can use to help people talk about self-harm and what they're doing. Sometimes even watching certain types of videos can be considered self-harm. Things that are self-deprecating, like people constantly calling themselves names or hitting themselves, or there's others like people pulling out their hair, for example. And I know that's part of a disorder, but it can also be damaging to your scalp. Paula, if you want to share any other examples.
I do have a question for you both as well regarding, it kind of all ties together. Now, when we talk about suicide, now, can we relate self-harm to suicide? Is there a connection there, is what I'm getting at?
Yeah,
sure. And can you explain, please?
Yeah, there is a connect. It's a risk factor, that's for sure, for later on suiciding, but it's not a, it doesn't mean that someone who cuts themselves will suicide, right? However, again, like I said, it is a risk factor for suicide, so it's not something to be covered up or not talked about. Please do, if you see and some person in your network is coming forward and sharing with you that they're cutting themselves or burning themselves or any other forms of self-harm, to sit with them, hear their story, validate them, and not further shame them. Do not give them advice like you should do this and you should do that. That is not helpful at all for people who are self-harming. They want to be heard. They want to be heard in a very non-judgmental way. So saying things that judge their experience, like, oh, it wasn't that bad, or why are you doing this? Like, why are you cutting yourself? This is not going to help anyone, right? Thank you for sharing with me that this is going on for you. What would you like to do? I'm here with you. We can go get help together, so that you're with them on their journey, not judging them or not judging them for what they're doing to process. Because really what they're doing is trying to stay alive. And it sounds counterintuitive because they are the person may be cutting themselves or burning themselves, but that helps keep them alive.
I'm kind of glad you say that, because I remember from a very young age, and I had the scars not that I want to show my scars, but I remember being very young and I was a self-harmer. So what I would do is I was a cutter. And I did this for quite a long time. And cutting myself did not really mean that I wanted to commit suicide, but at the same time, it was a very, very confusing event for me. I wanted to release my pain that I felt, and cutting myself was the only way to alleviate that pain. It felt good to have that kind of pain. It really wasn't painful, but that was my experience. And I think this is where when people get confused that, yeah, I'm hurting myself and I'm self-harming, but I really don't want to die. I just want to talk to somebody. And I'm sure you might have heard this a few times yourself, have you not, Maria?
Yes, Stewart, exactly as you have described it. Thank you for sharing that. It takes a lot of courage to share that here in this very public forum. Your voice, Stewart, is helping others find their voice. So we want to acknowledge that before we go on to discussing anything else. And as a man as well, and I'm sure we see a man today, but what you're talking about is when you were a youth, when you were maybe a boy, right? And there are so many boys out there who are doing this in secrecy and in shame and in silence that need support. They need to be heard. So thank you for sharing that, Stewart. And I'm hoping that parents who are watching this to, talk to your kids and do a mental health check-in, say, hello, how are you feeling today? Not asking, are you okay? Are you okay is a question that has a yes and no answer and can end a conversation. How are you feeling today? Is an open-ended question that invites dialogue to happen. So I'm just going to pass it on to Paula. I'm going to post Toronto Distress Center numbers on the screen. So I'm just going to, Paula, if you want to share your thoughts. Please.
Thank you, Maria. We've heard in the past, with respect to Maria's brilliant point about asking someone, are you okay? And in terms of it being, a closed-ended question, some people have responded with, I'm fine. So how do you respond to that, right? So what if they're not fine? And we do acknowledge you, Stewart, as well. I'd like to say that as well, because it's so important what you've just done. You're a pioneer for the future for, inspiring youth and also adults as well to share their voices around the notion of suicide, because as Brad eloquently mentioned, that it is a taboo subject, very much like childhood sexual abuse and or adulthood sexual assaults are taboo subjects as well. And in order to unveil these experiences, we need to shine the light on them. So in order to shine the light, we have to talk more about these subjects. We have to talk about these experiences because it's important. There are people out there suffering. And as Maria excellently mentioned, 10 people are dying every day of suicide. So if we can save one life or help one person, we're helping millions. Anyone who's connected to that person, because we're all connected together as human beings. So it's so important. And Stewart, you mentioned this really brilliantly during the beginning of our beautiful conversation that, it's important to explore the notion of language, because some language can be hurtful and detrimental to people, to survivors of trauma, persons with thoughts of suicide. It's so important to set a space of safety. In order to do that, it's exactly what Maria beautifully mentioned about, non-judgment. Having an empathetic ear, being with instead of doing for, and listening, truly listening from the heart to people, I think is one of the most important, aspects or things that we can do to help support persons with thoughts of suicide. Maria is going to post the numbers, the distress center and crisis center numbers as well.
It should be appearing there on the screen. So if you're experiencing any form of distress in Toronto, you can call the Toronto Distress Center at 416-408-4357. And I'll post the Gerstein Center as well. These numbers are 24/7 crisis lines in Toronto.
I think what I'll do when we're all finished, what I'll do is I'm going to have to come back, and I do have an international list because we do have international listeners. And I mean, not just for Canada, but for US, and then of course over in Europe as well. I just don't have it here in front of me, and I'm going to be all fuddled if I try to do it while I'm talking to everybody at the same time. So I'll have to post it later on. Another thing, thank you, Paula and Maria. Another thing too, I've often heard about when I talk about self-harm. People, I've heard of other kids doing this where they starve themselves. And then they're dealing with anorexia, bulimia, or sort of hidden things that people don't see. Cutting yourself is a hidden thing as well, but some people go a little bit get carried away, and obviously you can't hide those scars, but those other scars you can hide. I think that's becoming more and more prevalent. I see this in younger people. Do you agree with that, or that with the assumption I'm saying, or do you think it's being dealt with on a more readily basis now that people are more open about this sort of thing?
I wanted to ask if Brad wants to jump in, and then we'll share our thoughts.
If I understand what you're asking, I think people who are having thoughts of suicide tend to communicate in some way that they're having thoughts of suicide, that they're suffering with something. A key section of the ASIST program is what we call exploring invitations, where we learn to read some of the signs. They could be cutting, they could be all kinds of different things, giving their things away, all kinds of different things that are invitations for us to engage in the conversation of suicide. So I think most people consciously and subconsciously are seeking help in some way that we can read if we know the cues.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad, for sharing that. I'm just going to post another resource on the screen if people are struggling with eating disorders as well. Stewart, there's a couple places here for sure. In Toronto, Sheena's Place is one. And then the National Eating Disorder Information Center, or NEDIC.ca. So if anyone's interested in learning more about that and the risk factors for eating disorders, to go to that website or go to Sheena's Place. And I'll post Sheena's Place link as well. Paula, did you want to say a few words about what Stewart just asked about?
Just around the notion of self-harm, and thank you, Maria. Thank you, Brad, for sharing as well. Just that some people may engage in self-harm as a form of coping. So whatever that looks like for each person, and it's important to, be empathetic and listen and be with them and through their journey, because we're all in this journey together as human beings. So if we can connect, I know that we're disconnected right now physically because of COVID-19. However, what we focus on expands. So we can create these beautiful, meaningful online community, meetings like this one that you've created with us today, Stewart. So we thank you for that. It's so important in highlighting what Maria and Brad had mentioned, that the more we talk about things, the less it seems so huge, because what we need to do here is really take something big and just shrink it to a minuscule molecule size and just talk about things to lessen the way we feel about them, or lessen the way it's seen as a taboo subject. Take away from that. What we focus on expands. So let's focus on the good. Let's focus on, people's capacity. Let's focus on the fact that everyone is a gifted human being. Everyone is unique and beautiful, and everyone has a unique gift that they bring to this planet. And with that, everyone can serve a positive purpose for humanity.
Thank you. Now, before I get you and Brad to talk about the ASIST program at the house, one last thing. What would you tell parents now, today, in regards to if they're struggling with a child or a young adult that's, could be doing self-harm, thinking about suicide, having suicidal thoughts? What would you tell that parent right now that maybe not so sure what to do and how to handle that? Anybody? Thank you.
I would say to become a little bit more educated. The ASIST Today program is amazing. We often get parents coming into the program that as a child or children that have had periods of thoughts of suicide. You can start, as Paula was saying, with the START program, the ASIST START program. The fundamental thing for me, who is a father, is to pay attention and really listen to your children with a mindset not of expectation. I know that needs to be there, and it's good to be there, but with receptivity, in that if there's changes, that you just listen and you go with it, and you ask and receive, let them speak. With emotions, it's very difficult for children and adults to express them, and they need a little bit of space. So the language we use in terms of inviting that is very important.
Thank you, Brad. Paula, Maria?
Thank you so much, Stewart, for asking. Thank you, Brad, for sharing your valued wisdom with us. I think it's important, if we had any message, it's that there are resources out there. And as Brad said, to become further educated on what are those resources. So livingworks.net has amazing programs, LivingWorks Education, in terms of suicide prevention, intervention, skills training. Brad and I are also ASIST trainers as well. We deliver yearly suicide prevention training workshops as well. And for more information about that or future workshops, you can visit thegatehouse.org. And we do offer that. Also, in terms of messages for parents, is that we are here and you're not alone in this. And any messages to youth on our part, it would sound something like this, that we believe you. You're not alone, and there is help out there, and there's no shame and nothing wrong with you for seeking support. If anything, it actually shows how strong you are of a person to reach out, because you have great courage and strength and capacity within you. So we do believe you, and we are here, and you are not alone. These messages need to be told, because right now there's messages out there of negativity. Let's focus on the positive messages. Let's be with each other in pleasant ways in terms of what these beautiful communities that we're creating together. So thank you so much for asking beautiful questions, Stewart. It sounds like, they're very thoughtful, straight from the heart as well. So we acknowledge you for that as well, and also for having us here today. It's so meaningful to create these beautiful safe spaces for people that, they can talk about suicide. And anyone who would like to reach out to Brad as well, his website is stepintothecreative.com. For anyone who would like to reach out to Maria and I, our website is thegatehouse.org, and our business website as well is MNP, like Maria and Paula, psychotherapy.com. We have as well, I would like to take this opportunity actually really briefly to tell you everyone about an upcoming workshop. It's a 4-week online workshop. It's called Steer, and Maria will share on Brad's website as well. It's really cool, everyone. This is a neat opportunity. And basically, it's a mindfulness-based workshop that Brad and I will be delivering with Maria online. And it's basically, helping people realign their sacred path to transform their lives. And the Steer workshop encompasses mindfulness-based practices, as well as deep breathing meditation, guided imagery meditation. We're going to practice gratitude, anything to do with realigning people's inner spirit and their inner wisdom, their inner light that is within each and every one of us. I will turn it over to my wonderful colleague, Brad, as well. Brad, if you'd like to share some more information about our Steer program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paula. What it really is getting in touch, as Paula said. What you focus on expands. There is creative wisdom in every human being on the planet, and there's a gift that everybody on the planet has that nobody can offer the world. And we believe that when that gift is blocked, it causes pain on 2 levels. It causes pain on the individual because there's this energy that wants to surface and serve, and it causes pain to the world because the world needs everybody's gifts. We all need to do this together. We need to shed our creative energy into the world. So this program is really about unleashing that creative energy within you and moving forward in a post-COVID world in a very positive way that makes your life feel good to you.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're coming close to our time, but thank you for talking about that. I was going to ask you about that. You kind of jumped ahead, which has worked out beautifully. So in closing, please plug yourself a little bit more about the ASIST program, when the next available dates you're going to be doing it. And I'm sure the Gatehouse will post this anyway, and I'm sure it'll be on your websites as well. But I want you to do some self-promoting here, shameless self-promoting here. So please let everybody know when you will be offering the next ASIST training as well, and coming dates. I know this is online as well, but it probably in some cases it's actually easier for people to get around to do this. So please plug away.
Thank you, Stewart, for asking. That's a brilliant question. I appreciate you asking. So right now, Brad and I were working on some future dates together. We had one that was previously scheduled in May, but however, we're presently in the process of waiting for vaccinations for COVID-19. So just, to keep in mind, because Brad and I and Maria as well, we highly value everyone's safety and health. That's the number one priority is people's safety, health and safety. So right now we're in the process of coming up with some dates. Those dates will be posted on the gatehouse.org website. And when they come out, you can check our website periodically for those dates as well. You're also welcome to email Brad directly at brad@stepintothecreative.com or myself at pcordeiro@thegatehouse.org or mnpcounseling@gmail.com as well. Thank you so much. Thank you, Stewart. That's
awesome. So any closing thoughts today? And again, I'm so grateful to see you guys here today. The pleasure is mine.
Thank you, Stewart. I actually have one that speaks to your previous question about to parents whose kids are maybe self-harming, and they, as a parent myself, one of the thoughts that a lot of parents struggle with is I'm not good enough, or I'm not a good enough parent, or somehow I've caused this, or things of the sort. Those thoughts are not helpful. The most important thing is to get your child some help and get yourself some help. So reaching out to a trusted social worker, guidance counselor to start the process at school. Some of the schools in our boards do have social workers that do have the kids at the ground level. If that's available, it's a free resource to start with. Your family doctor is another resource to start with. They can refer to a psychiatrist who can get the mental health side of things going. And if medication is needed, whatever the process is, look into what the resources are in your community, and do not be afraid to do so as a parent. I know that those shameful thoughts of somehow I caused this, or it's my fault, or I'm not a good enough parent might surface. Talk to someone for yourself as well. Make sure that you're getting self-care as a parent, and what are the boundaries around your work-life balance, for example, your social life balance, to make sure that you're getting help for yourself as well, because it's not easy going through and seeing your child harming themselves, or thinking about suicide, or thinking any negative thoughts toward themselves. So just to be mindful of that for yourself too as a parent.
Thank you, Maria. Paula, Brad, last thoughts, comments before we wind her down?
I would just say, echoing some of what Maria was saying, is to surround yourself with a caregiving community, friends, professional people, and to make sure that there's a community and that there's an energy surrounding the ideas that we're discussing today. Because the biggest problem is that feeling of isolation. I've worked with many people that are struggling with mental health, and it all comes down to one thing: they feel alone in their pain. So suicide is a community health problem. Mental health is a community health problem. We want to surround people with non-judgmental, compassionate energy that helps to bring language or some kind of expression of these darker feelings that we have to the surface, where we can work with them.
Thank you, Brad. Paula?
I would just say thank you so much, Brad, for sharing your valued wisdom. And thank you as well, Maria, for sharing your valued wisdom with us, and Stewart as well for your wonderful questions. I would just say that, in echoing and highlighting Brad and Maria's magnificent points, that, just people, there is support out there, that there are spaces out there that are being created, such as this one, including in our STEER program as well. In terms of, spaces that bring communities together for people to share their valued wisdom. So it's important to know that you're not alone, and that you are heard, and your voice does matter, and that you are not garbage. Every human being has a beautiful light inside of them. And there are magnificent gifts as well, as Brad beautifully mentioned, and that your voice does matter, and that you are heard, and we are here for you. We're here with you, and you are not alone. Please know that you are not alone, and it's never too late to receive support and reach out for support, because it takes great courage and strength to share your gifts, as Brad said, with the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you all. I want to thank everybody for joining Personal Transformation today. Today we had a very, very, well, it's not the easiest conversation, but thank you to my esteemed colleagues for making this conversation so easily talked about. And hopefully you all got some good tools out of this that will help you the coming days ahead. Today is our first day. Actually, we changed platforms. We're on a new platform. It's called StreamYard. And we are not only broadcasting on Blog Talk Radio, which is my prime source to begin with, but we are on YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, YouTube, Facebook. So we're kind of all over the place, and this is kind of a test thing we did here today too, and hopefully it all worked out all right. And judging from the notifications on my phone, Maria, looks like it all came up all right. And I'll have to go back and check and see. When I'm done here as well, I will dig up a national, or rather I shouldn't say a national, but an international log of different phone numbers for suicide hotlines and helplines all throughout the world. So when we're done here, I'll post it on the Blog Talk, and then I'll put it on Twitter as well, just to show that it's out there, because I know on social media, I see this stuff all the time, and thank God people put this out there for other people to see, because this information is not always readily available when you're not feeling right. But anyway, nonetheless, folks, I want to thank you. The next time we come back, we have a there's some interesting things coming up is what I'm trying to say. So please stay tuned as well. We'll post what's coming up. Maria, Paula, Brad, thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
And we'll do this again soon, because I'm hoping that things will change in the light of the world getting better, which it has to. It's going to. And, we'll just kind of have to hang back and see what happens. But, folks, have a great day. And, hey, it's only Wednesday. I can't even say have a great weekend. But anyway, thank you. It was a really pleasure seeing you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Bye.
Bye, Maria Paula.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye now.